So I'm Claudio, and my local colleagues call me Hybrid Claudio, because I keep going on about hybrid clouds and hybrid WANs. But just a quick show of hands, who represents a service provider here? There's I'd say about a third of the room. And who represents a technology vendor? There's a third missing. Hands up if you don't like putting your hands up. That's the other third. So hands up if English is your second language. Oh, good. Nearly everyone. So we'll share a couple of English-style jokes as we go through. So I represent CenturyLink, and we've had a managed SD-WAN service going for 2 and a bit years. So I'm just going to tell you a bit about that journey. We've learned a lot, but as you know from new technologies, when they come in, they follow this hype cycle of promise, buy our shiny box, save 30% TCO, and all the crazy dumb hype that technologists think, is that dumb? And then you think about it again, you think, actually, that's pretty clever. And then you go back thinking it's dumb. So you go through the dumb, clever cycle of trying to work out why the world works that way. And SD-WAN as itself is starting to build value, but managed SD-WAN services are in that trough of disillusionment. You didn't promise my 30% TCO savings, and we're still trying to work out what the value is. So we've learned some good lessons along the way. But I think in the last couple of years, SD-WANs have really come of age, and they're starting to make sense to people. It's still early days, but I liken it to SD-WANs have been like teenage sex. If those of you can still remember back that far. Everyone talked about it. Nobody really knew how to do it. Everyone thought everyone else was doing it, so everyone claimed they were doing it. So that's an English joke. So you're welcome. And then, if we're all guilty of doing it, we all wheeled out some poor exec, the marketing department wheeled him out and said, right, you've got to give a talk and make a video to put on the website. Oh, cool. What's it about today? Well, we're launching this new product. Oh, right. What does it do? Never mind that. Just say something about digital transformation. And so digital transformation, the silver bullet to selling. If we can link it to digital transformation somehow, we're good. But a lot of this sort of missed the point because in that long progression of SDN and NFV, it's like a death by 1,000 cuts to legacy networks. And we needed something like a package we could drop in and solve problems that we immediately had today. So how do we make hybrid WANs work properly? How do we have standard central policies across the WAN? How do we take out some of that configuration headache? If we can standardize across the policies, can we take the friction out of change management? How do we move to more as a service? So I think, the digital messages were okay if you scratch the surface, but it was easy to miss the point. But we've seen customer demands are maturing. So I still have meetings with customers and I want more for less. And you just think, well, okay, what does that mean? Is your IT budget going down? Oh, no. Is your communications budget going down? No. So what is it? Sorry, let's go back. What is it you want? What's the less bit? Oh, well, we would need to spend this much and we want to avoid spending this much. And you think, okay, you want more for the same. And then you go around in circles, do a dance, and you end up somewhere, hopefully at the other end, with a WAN transformation. But a lot of enterprises are realizing that connectivity is really critical to their business. They already know that. If they're a manufacturer, they can almost, or a retailer, they can almost measure the cost impact of downtime or poor performance. They can measure that. every hour, every minute equals X number of euros, pounds, dollars. Internet first. So a lot of people saying, yeah, we're cloud first, we're internet first. But what we actually found is private connectivity into public clouds is actually becoming the preferred, or I think it's already the preferred way of connecting to public clouds, and it's increasing that way. So if you've got something you're hosting for within your enterprise, you put it into AWS or Azure, then private connectivity through ExpressRoute, if it's Microsoft, or Direct Connect, if it's AWS, is growing in popularity, and it is dominating. So, there is a hybrid connectivity model that's appearing. So it's no surprise that, Marcus, for example, CenturyLink and others are really trying to get hybrid WANs working. Broadband, part of that hype, buy a shiny box, save 30% TCO. Hang on, didn't you say that with WAN optimization when I was trying to do that 10 years ago? Yeah, we're saying it again for SD-WAN. But broadband is a very good way to augment your best effort bandwidth. You need more best effort bandwidth because the role of MPLS was to squeeze the best effort class before. And you don't really want to do that now because you don't really know if it's best effort traffic or not. The reason being is because you want to adapt as a service, you want to enable the business, you want to let business flow, and if you're enabling software as a service and marketing can go off and do stuff in the cloud, finance, HR, they can all do stuff in the cloud, you don't necessarily know how critical traffic is, but you need deep visibility to differentiate it from cat videos, unless cat videos are important to your business. Some people find cat videos very important. But you need that deep visibility, and you need to be able to let business flow. And sometimes that's just saying, do you know what? Let's have a cheap way of augmenting that best effort bandwidth. So broadband has found a place alongside MPLS to deliver a fair mix of criticality. With virtualization, a lot of people talk about, how far into you and supporting universal CPE. We haven't found it that urgent yet, to be honest, because it's nice. We're definitely going that way, and a lot of us are pushing to either launch that this year or next year. But there is so much more to do. Getting our global logistics sorted out, just to be able to put these new devices in different countries is so much work. I think once upon a time we were promised these consumer off-the-shelf devices that you can go into your local store anywhere around the world and there build a network on it. The reality is we don't do that today. We use hardened, trusted devices that we test in the labs, and we go with particular vendors. And guess what? The global distribution isn't quite as good as what we used to with Cisco. So problems to solve there. But within the bare metal configuration, before you virtualize it, functions like WAN optimization, next generation security are finding themselves within the same software packages as SD-WAN, the routing functionality, the application awareness, the visibility. We're finding that that's all available within the same package. So to virtualize it, what else do we want to put next to it? Well, maybe it's a different brand security, maybe it's a different kind of visibility tool, whatever it is. The pressure is not quite there yet, and it's about getting the SD-WAN bit right first. That's our priority right now. Then our friends in America who didn't know a managed service, if it came up to them and introduced themselves as, hi, I'm a managed service, they are now talking about managed services. So my colleagues, in the States who are wondering, what the hell is this Brit talking about? Now they're embracing managed services, and SD-WAN has been a great way to homogenize across the pond in terms of bringing people to a common managed service platform. So that's been really good to see. So we've learned some stuff along the way. We've got over 110 customers that are either in progress, have pilots, or they're full deployment and have been managed for a while. Currently, we have about just over 1,000 SD-WAN CPEs in our service delivery WIP. So that's in progress to be delivered. So we're now moving, it's not about selling ones and twos anymore. It's about trying to learn our lessons, scale, formalize some standardization, and really learn from some of those lessons. And one of those lessons was about MPLS. So I stood up at conferences like this a few years ago and said, MPLS dead, I don't get it. At some point in the future, it will run its natural course, but for the immediate future, I don't see how it's going to go away. And what's happened is it's stayed pretty much in place, and I've actually been astounded at how resilient it's been recently. So it hasn't given way to fully untrusted networks. It's stayed where it is, and what customers are doing right now is they're adding DIA and broadband to it to augment that best effort capacity. Okay, they want to offload internet locally. They want to put less critical stuff down a less critical line. But they haven't changed their MPLS. So 88% of our customers have pretty much left MPLS as it is. Now, we're not tied to it. We're not forcing them. We're not holding a gun to their head and say, we're the service provider. We need you to buy MPLS to keep us afloat. That's not what we're doing. It doesn't matter to us. It's just an access line, and it can go that way into our MPLS cloud, or it can go that way into our internet. It doesn't make any difference to us. And it was not just us saying this. So if you just sort of Google, Nemertes, gave some similar statistics that saw, there are 57% of people who are having no change on their MPLS, 22% that are sort of capping it. Only 17% were looking to reduce it. So fairly recent stats. So everyone's got their cameras out. You wait till you see my really nice, pretty slides. And how are they buying it? Well, nearly half are buying it from their connectivity provider. So they're buying it from me. I give them their connectivity. I'm going to sell them an overlay network with that and give them a hybrid WAN that's SD-WAN enabled. Just over a quarter are going to manage it themselves, and just over a quarter are going to find someone else to manage it. Now, that doesn't mean we're going to be scattergun about it and try and force people into a managed service from their connectivity provider if they don't want one. So what we're finding is the size of the organization is the key metric. If they have over 50,000 employees, I'm telling my sales guys, don't bother. You might be asked to do a dance with them for a while, but they're not going to buy a managed service from you. If they're over 100,000 employees, then that's going to be, they're going to divide their WAN into lots. We want MPLS from someone here. We want a regional provider for this, and we want someone to do SD-WAN over that. And they'll go for a multi-vendor environment and go for cheapest in-region provider. Maybe they'll use their IT outsource partner to do it. But they've got complex, large organizations with 100,000 employees plus, complex IT environments, and it's difficult just to drop a managed service in there. So we typically go after multinationals that have less than 50,000 employees. And if you think about the overlay SD-WAN bit and the underlay connectivity, we're trying to allow some flexibility. Do they want to bring their own network? Have they got an existing contract with someone else for the connectivity that they need to bring as part of the solution? But we found that as we were doing this, there were benefits that we didn't really see before. Now, if you think SD-WAN is still developing, now if there's a piece of functionality in SD-WAN that's not quite delivering what it promised on the tin, then we have to use the underlay to provide that part of the service. We have to go traditional old school on that bit. So some elements of Cloud Connect, I think you saw, Marcus, some elements of his cloud connection are coming next year. Some exist already. For us, some elements of that are coming next year. Some exist this year. But when you provide the overlay and underlay, you've got that choice. If there's something missing on the SD-WAN layer, you can just drop it to the underlay. We control that. And then when that feature comes out, we can just knock that back on top to the overlay. One example was the gateways. So as a service provider, you want to have an SD-WAN gateway because you want to break out of this proprietary SD-WAN domain to break out to services like your cloud services, Maybe you want to drop a SIP service in there or some sort of UC&C service in there. Any service you want to connect to the WAN, a gateway is good. So we typically locate our gateways in all the usual places around the world where you'd expect, where you have data lakes and cloud providers. But we found that SD-WANs are really good at measuring the performance and taking dynamic real-time decisions with that sort of closed-loop automation. Something not performing well, let's switch it over to the other path, or let's have forward error correction kick in, or let's take some sort of other action that optimizes the traffic. But when you have, in the measurement path, if you have a gateway in the middle, does all of that work? And so when you put all of this stuff together, do all of these features work together in the right way? And that's what's still developing with the technology across different vendors. And this is just one example. So our vendor happens to be bringing out new code soon that addresses that. You can have a gateway in the middle. So if a site's on MPLS, wants to go through a gateway to hit a site on who's fed by IP, that's fine. It'll still do an end-to-end measurement path and still treat the traffic as it needs to be treated. So just an example of something we've had to route under the underlay until that functionality comes. So we've gone through our own transformation. Operationally, as we've automated the workflows, we've had to move some of that provisioning expertise up to the front. So now when we do a quotation, we can push a button, it becomes an order, and it automates the provisioning through the network. So we've had to move some of our resources around, and we've had to scale it. But we found that when we take those resources away from provisioning, we take the hands out of the network. Our right first time migrations, site migrations, have gone up. And when you take the hands out of the network, stability tends to go up. So we've seen some good benefits of trying to standardize your templates, just to reduce the errors from change control, because change control is a big source of instability. And SD-WAN, we're embedded it into our operations now. I think like WAN optimization and some of these other bolt-on things, you could run them in a separate center of excellence, but now you have to embed those into your operations. It has to be part of. The same people that are managing your connectivity need to manage that SD-WAN. So just to talk about some of the benefits, we're trying to achieve agility here. But SD-WAN promises a lot of agility enablement, but it doesn't come free. So if you've got the ability to have centralized policies, you don't get that for free if you take SD-WAN. You have to put effort into it. And that's one of the things people don't tell you about. You have to fight to make sure that you are driving global policies, that you don't go random, you don't start creating per site policies. It's very easy to do. And part of our operational transformation was to really take a more holistic view of the network. So what do we need to do to this network to get it to make sense and to try and fight to keep as fewer policies as possible in terms of steering traffic, prioritization? How do we keep as fewer buckets as possible and have them as global as possible so we're not having site specifics? Because once you achieve that, you've got that, you start to unlock the agility. So just a key important thing that it's how you use the technology is how you unlock the benefits here. Thank you.